Are you ready to elevate your school spirit? Look no further than onecampusco.com. Whether you're in the classroom, on the field, or cheering from the stands, we're dedicated to bringing academics, athletics, alumni, and fans together. Founded by our alumni-owned parent company, One Chapter in 2021, we recognize the need for quality apparel at reasonable prices and created a shopping experience that connects fans with their university. Join us in showcasing your pride and giving back to your community. With onecampusco.com, you're not just a student, athlete, or fan, you're part of a vibrant family. Together, let's celebrate what makes our university special. Visit us at www.charlotte.onecampusco.com using promo code HWY49 for 10% off.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Highway 49 podcast. We are back with episode 99 of the show. We got some new faces on today. We'll get to introductions in just a second, but guys, it's NBA trade deadline today. We're recording this at 3:30 Thursday. Deadline just passed, so all the news is out, and let's dive into it. Some of the new faces. We got our guy Jerry, repeat guest on the show. Check out his work. Jerry, tell them where they can find you real quick, man.
Everything on Clutch Points, IG, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, you name it, we're everywhere at this point.
Definitely, man. And then our guy Matt, talk to us, man.
Yeah, I just need to let the listeners know. You pronounce my last name Alkiza. Jeremy has said my name on this podcast 100 times, and I've never corrected him. But just for the listeners who have heard my name mentioned in the past, Matt Alkiza, you can find me on Hornets and Panthers on SI covering both teams in Charlotte.
Yeah, I didn't try either of y'all's last names, so yeah, we'll give Jeremy the L on that one. But guys, trade deadline has passed. Want to start with Hornets, then we'll get to kind of the broader scale. Uh, Yesterday, Mark Williams was traded. There was a lot of kind of back and forth on social, but I think Jeff Peterson kind of wrapped up this deadline today. Jeremy, I wanted to open it up to you really fast. We'll go from there. Talk to us about the move today to acquire Yusuf Nurkic in a 2026 first round pick from the Phoenix Suns, man.
Yeah, Matt, I apologize. Thank you. This is why you need a coordinator to whip you into shape when things aren't going your way. But I mean, Mark Williams, it's crazy because the national media, like, how many people are turning on League Pass and putting on a Hornets game on a Tuesday night, right? So
Specifically without LaMelo. Yeah.
exactly. So you're looking at the box score, you're seeing Mark Williams 24-13, 39-8, all these things. If you watch the games, it's very deceiving because how many times are we looking at each other in the media section saying, why is Mark floating in no man's land? Why is Nick Smith Jr. on a cross match, cross switch with Nikola Jokic, and Mark isn't barking at him to switch? These are like simple things that just come down to effort. We've heard Terrence Ogilvy for Bally Sports, go into him at a halftime thing. But I do think the national media's perception of Mark Williams is a little different than the local media. Now, again, we've seen players who have been, almost an NBA purgatory with these teams that are always in the bottom five of their respective conferences. And because of that, you don't know what they can actually do. PJ Washington's a great example of that. I want to throw it to you guys, though, I guess starting with Matt. We've had this discussion before. We've we were in a text thread last night talking about, dude, he's just doing cardio out there. But with that being said, they're going to see that he is the longest reach in the NBA and they're going to run with it. So what's your overall takeaway, not with the whole trade in totality, but with Mark Williams going to Los Angeles?
Yeah, I think on the offensive end, Mark is the perfect fit to play next to Luka Doncic, right? I mean, he, like you said, longest standing reach in the history of the NBA Combine. He's a great play finisher. He's a great pick and roll big on offense. So he's going to go and he's going to score and he's going to be a good offensive big for the Lakers. But offense is not their problem in the slightest. You look at 41-year-old LeBron James. You look at Luka Doncic, who just spent the entire NBA Finals getting picked on defense by the Celtics. You look at Austin Reeves, who is feisty but is not like a plus defender. They're bringing in Mark Williams, and the national media and the fans are thinking they're getting this elite rim protector, elite big who can switch onto guards on the perimeter. But Mark Williams is not that. He was before his back injury, before his foot injury, but in 2025, Mark Williams struggles guarding strong centers in the post. He cannot switch on to guards on the perimeter because he doesn't have the lateral agility to match up with like anybody quicker than him. He is pretty much strictly playing drop coverage and pick and rolls. And we've seen in Charlotte in this 9-game homestand they're on, guards just pull up for threes over his slow closeouts. So he's gonna be great on offense. The Lakers are gonna score. They're gonna score at will on a lot of teams, especially with LeBron and Luka, two basketball supercomputers running the show. But I don't know what they're going to do on defense. And you look at the centers that they're going to face in the West in the playoffs, and we're going to see some Wilt Chamberlain like lines coming against the Lakers come playoff time from guys like Jokic, from guys like Wemby, from guys like Anthony Davis. So I think it's a good move for the offensive side of the ball. I think it's a really, really questionable move on defense.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's not really too much to add to that. Like we talk about it time and time again, just the skill set and versatility of fives in this league is the bar isn't at where it was in the 2000s, right? Where Mark Williams, if this was the case, he was playing in 2005 or 6, yeah, we might look at this like this was a championship level winning move. But the fact that you mentioned it, he can't guard anybody on the perimeter. He sits in drop cover. And we watched the Bucks game last night where Brook Lopez shot three, not shot, but shot three straight threes in this dude's eye hole. Everybody just like, yo, like what's happening? So I don't really know if it's like a rotation thing. I don't know if it's a health thing. You mentioned the foot and back issues. Maybe it could be a developmental thing. Maybe he needs a LeBron or Luca barking at him. Maybe JJ Redick, because I know they have a relationship from the Duke days and he was like his mentor in the program or something like that. So I'm hoping a different change in voice for him after just starting out with Charles Lee, going on to another first year head coach. Maybe it's something different. Maybe the locker room with having older veterans. Like I know they had Taj here in Charlotte and, Vasa or whatever, if you want to call him a veteran or not, up to you. But having LeBron is a different beast. So maybe he picks up, maybe he doesn't. Sink or swim in LA, though. You got to perform right away.
Yeah, this isn't us just talking out of our ass. I mean, AD put up 40 and 20 a week ago. Jokic had 28, 17, and 13. And I get it. It's Jokic, the best player in the world. Valanciunas just had 14 and 17. Donovan Clingan walked in here and blocked Mark Williams 3 times in the first quarter. A guy they could have taken at 6. He was taken 7th in the 2024 NBA draft. The thing about Mark for me is the effort. And
Yeah.
that's my question, where was this a thing where I know I'm on the way out, let me stay healthy and let me not go 100% and try to risk myself? Or is this just who the player he is now? That's
Yeah.
my big thing right now because I can absolutely see Mark going to the Lakers, catching lobs from LeBron and Luca, getting a block that turns into LeBron getting the rebound, kicking it out to Luca. Luca throws it off the backboard to LeBron, and Laker fans are like, "We got this defensive demon for nothing." Right? So I can absolutely see both sides of the coin. But Hunter, talk to me about like, the repercussions of this,
Yeah.
because I don't really know what's going on for the Lakers now with that Western Conference front court, like Matt alluded to.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna start on the Hornets side real quick and I'll get to Lakers. So big picture for the Hornets. They now have 11 first round picks in the next 7 drafts, 24 total picks from now until 2031. So when you're looking at what Charlotte has done as a whole under Jeff Peterson, you like where this is going. Now it is some of these deals, as I mentioned earlier with Nurkic, you feel really good about maybe sending Vasa Micic, Cody Martin, and a second round pick to get a 2026 first and a big man on an expiring contract. And then the Mark Williams side of things is more perplexing for me because you mentioned it. I can't remember who said it on this pod, but you could have had Connect at 6 if you wanted him. You could have had Donovan Clingan at 6 if you wanted him. You took Tejan Salon, who has ups and downs. He's spent a lot of time in Greensboro this year as a number 6 overall pick. He flashed a little bit last night, but hasn't maybe put on film what you want to see from that, taking someone so high in the draft. But as far as the Lakers side of things, I think you're about to see a different version of Mark Williams, and I think you're going to see a different version of Dalton Connect in Charlotte. As Matt mentioned, a better Mark on offense, who has what the best lob thrower in basketball and Luca, the supercomputers with LeBron. What I am worried about for Charlotte in this deal is what Dalton Connect is going to be able to do. I know JJ Redick's a first year coach, but if you're a shooting guard a strictly three-point shooter, would you not want to play for someone like JJ Redick who could set the table for you? Someone like LeBron James who's going to be able to facilitate. Now you're coming to Charlotte. You're going to have to do a lot of your own shot creation, specifically to conclude this season without LaMelo Ball for an extended period of time. No Brandon Miller for the rest of the year. I'm interested to see what's going to happen with that. But yeah, I think you're going to see Mark improve, and I think we'll get to figure out what kind of player Dalton is in this stint here in Charlotte.
The one thing we're figuring out with Jeff and Charles is that they just want high motor guys. They don't care if they
Yeah.
can shoot right now, right? They just want to have the identity of this team as people that aren't going to go 50% and jog up the court on a fast break for defense, transition defense. You go out, you get Isaiah Wong. You go out, Tijon Salon, maybe highest motor in the NBA draft, even though he might have some other faults in other places. You go and get Josh Okogie, and you keep that going with guys like Dalton Connect. And that's the identity they're building. I just wonder when that will shift. Matt, what's the outlook for this team? Because we talked about this. They're basically punting on next year. You mentioned Nurkic has an expiring. So where does this team go from here? Are they just in a let's stockpile every pick we can possibly have, or are they actually trying to go somewhere tangible in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer, it's not an or right there, it's a yes. I think they're trying to collect all these assets to continue building around Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball right now. So you look at the team next year, you look at the potential starting five come October. You got LaMelo, you've got Brandon Miller, you've got Miles Bridges, you've got a lottery pick, Cooper Flag, Ace Bailey, PJ Edgecombe, one of those guys at the top of the draft, and you've got Yusuf Nurkic. Is that a better starting five than what they started the year with this year? I mean, it's hard to say no because they didn't start the season with Mark Williams. They started the season with Nick Richards at center. I think Nick Richards and Yusuf Nurkic is probably closer than people want to admit. And then you slot a lottery pick into the spot that Josh Green held. I think the Hornets could be better next year than they were this year. And they're doing this while they're also accruing all of these future assets. So if a guy becomes disgruntled, I'm not saying Giannis is going to become a Charlotte Hornet, but you think of a guy like that ilk, the Hornets now have the draft picks in their back pocket to send to a team for the next disgruntled superstar.
And that's just it too, is like obviously Brandon Miller was the pick at 2 a couple years ago. You see Tijon at 6, questionable pick with so many players going around that we mentioned a couple. When you look at 11 first round picks over the next 7 drafts, my brain goes to more of a splash trade than trying to pick and develop all those players. Jerry, what's your kind of take on that?
I mean, I kind of feel like you have to pick and choose when to be aggressive and when not to be. Like me and Jeremy have been talking for probably a week now where Sam Presti and OKC probably should gun for a guy like Kevin Durant to give up those young assets, those future picks. The only other guy that has more picks than Jeff Peterson at this particular point in time to go trade that for a superstar caliber player to push you over the top. I can't really see a major trade happening within the next 2 years for that type of player, just because you have to set out some type of groundwork first, right? Where Sam Presti traded for SGA through the Paul George deal, then ended up drafting Chet Holmgren, ended up drafting the Jalen Williamses, the Aaron Wiggins, land on those guys and Isaiah Joe through via trades or whatever, or second round undrafted pickup. So I think we have to see a little more of that come together first before I'm ready to be like, yeah, let's punt on the picks and go get an established free agent or go get a disgruntled guy that just wants to get out of a current situation. So I think it's ideal, but I think realistically we're like 2 to 3 years out from that.
All right, so to put a bow on this Hornets Lakers talk, can we all go around and do a grade for the Hornets trade deadline acquisitions? I guess I'll go first, and I'll go B plus. The fact that you were able to move off of some of those guys who were in fact injured and might not have suited up for a while with the Hornets going forward, and others who had injury history that could have came back up in the short-term future. I give it a B plus. You get some more draft picks, and I mean the 2031 first round unprotected from the Lakers. That's the big piece here. You don't know what's going to happen with Luka. That could end up being one of those things where it's like, oh, Boston traded a pick with the Brooklyn Nets, and allowed them to have Jason Tatum type of guy. Like you never know how that's gonna go, but I give him a B plus. I guess we can go Hunter, Matt, and then Jerry.
Yeah, I'll stay in the B range. I'll give him a B. I think when you look at the game last night, just as a microcosm, you're watching lineups with KJ Simpson, Isaiah Wong, DaQuan Jeffries, Musa Diabate, and Nick Smith Jr. This is the longest active playoff drought in the NBA, 8 years. It's going to continue. You see what the plan is, and Matt mentioned some of the potential picks. I give it a B because you're getting off of some of these players. You're getting this future capital. I just don't know if the Mark Williams move would have been the way that I would have done it specifically. That's the only reason I'll say that. All right, Matt.
Yeah, I give it a B plus. And I mean, I could be talking to an A minus because I think the trade for Yusuf Nurkic is really kind of a masterstroke by Jeff Peterson. He's filling a current need at center after trading Mark Williams. He's getting off of two guys that weren't going to be here next year anyways, because I think Vasa had a team option. Cody Martin's contract was non-guaranteed, and he got a first round pick in return. So that trade gets an A plus from me. I mean, I don't throw that around lightly, but that is just it fills up current need and also it continues to add to Charlotte's trove of draft picks. And then the Mark Williams trade brings down a little bit because there is that small chance that Mark Williams becomes the next great center of the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, you can't rule that out. He's struggled the last few weeks, but we've seen at his peak when he's healthy, when he's had some time to develop, he can still be a very, very impactful player. So I give it a B plus. Jerry, what you got?
Yeah, I think I'll sit right in the middle of everybody. I'll say a B. I think with Yusuf Nurkic kind of coming here, I'm kind of thinking long term after the rest of the season, after he wasn't playing in Phoenix for the last 20 odd games or so. I kind of feel like there's a chance for him to play back up his stock and maybe go into the summertime and I see Jeff kind of flip him over again. Maybe that's more second round picks. Maybe that's another first rounder, depending on how good he plays. But the overall moves were pretty solid. And the whole point of the game at this point, with having 12 wins or whatever it is at this point of the season for the Hornets, get more assets, figure things out with draft capital, figure out what players you want to stick around or what players you want to see go. And that happened to be Cody and Vasa. Maybe over the all season we see the Joshes go, Josh Green or Kogi or whatever it might be. So you got draft picks and you got a younger asset at the two possibly for the future and Dalton Connect, which I know we talked about in depth already. Should have probably been the draft pick because why trade for him at this point? But that doesn't matter. We are where we are now. So congrats on your new starting two guard, hopefully for the foreseeable future. So I think a B is pretty solid. I'll stay there.
Definitely. And one thing we haven't mentioned on this is the Josh Okogie trade for Nick Richards. Like I still think that was a good deal for Charlotte that kind of got this ball rolling to where they are now. So as I said, 7 picks for Jeff Peterson. And last thing on Mark Williams, we saw him struggle to create for himself without the lineups with LaMelo Ball, with Brandon Miller. He's not going to have that problem in LA. They're going to put the ball on a silver platter for him. So I definitely anticipate his numbers going up. But with that, guys, let's talk a little bit of big picture NBA because this was probably the best trade deadline ever. It definitely has taken the shine off the Super Bowl, which I need the Eagles to win. Little sidebar there. But I want to open up to y'all, Jerry. Hear from you first. What is your favorite move? Jerry's a resident Lakers fan on the pod, so it's a foggy decision on the Luka trade for you, man. But I need to know why and tell me what your favorite move of this deadline was, man.
Yeah, for those who don't know, obviously the context behind this, yeah, when the move initially happened, I did text the group chat, said I was foggy, but granted, it was 4 a.m. where I'm trying to process everything that's going on. So yeah, rightfully so. But after sleeping on it, day two of it, I feel good about what we are going to look like potentially long term. But the main reason being that Luka has to sign a contract after 2026, which isn't set in stone. But with Rob Pelinka going ahead and saying, hey, we're going to go get the center for you that they didn't go get for Anthony Davis, as everybody's talking about on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, it goes to show that Rob is willing to take care of his new franchise player that's younger than all of us. Well, maybe except for Jeremy. But either way, he's 25 years old. So a superstar of this magnitude you could have for the foreseeable future, 10 years, the next Laker great. And they did it again, right? They traded for Kareem. They traded for Kobe on draft night. Pau Gasol, like all these big names that are in here, signed Shaq in free agency. So it's kind of a no-brainer for me that it's the Lakers. Obviously, I'm biased, but if I'm putting that aside, I might say Miami. I kind of like the smaller assets of getting more role players to continue to add to that pot of rough and tough players. Wiggins fits that mold. Kyle Anderson fits that mold. If I'm a superstar caliber player, let's say one Kevin Durant, who could be a little disgruntled going into the offseason. What if they continue to struggle after being 25 and 25 right now? So you know what? I want to change the scenery. I want to go somewhere else. Miami's a hot spot. for free agents, and it always will be. So I'll say Lakers first, but honorable mention definitely Miami for me.
We have to put the Kevin Durant thing on the back burner. We got to circle back to that because that is massive of the lack of a trade happening there. Okay. Second, it is funny to see these NBA players. The news is happening during the games. So the fans are telling the bench while it's happening, hey, here's the move. And seeing the Heat players, Jaime, Tyler, and Kevin, Kevin looks like the old guy who's like, I don't care where I go. I've made enough money in the NBA. I'm cool. Tyler's smiling because he knows he's the one who's untradeable. And if you look at Jaime, I've never seen anyone look more blood red in the face because he was probably thinking, I'm on my way out of Miami. And for him to get the news like, oh, wait, they were able to do the trade without me leaving. This is perfect. Jerry said the Heat, mentioned the Lakers. I'm going to circle back to it, but I do want to say the lack of a trade with KD was good to see for me because if you're the Suns and Matt Ishbia, dude, get it together. I know you're a new owner, but the fact that you just want to make splash trades every single opportunity you can is not the recipe to success in the NBA. So for me, the lack of a KD trade is my favorite, I guess, trade that happened. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, it's one we haven't mentioned yet. And this is a guy I'm not really that high on in the grand scheme of things, but I love that the Spurs went out and got De'Aaron Fox to pair with Wemby. I'm not the biggest De'Aaron Fox fan in the world, but I love that the Spurs were able to get their superstar, generational 21-year-old alien center, the point guard that's going to be with him for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And they did it while still holding on to all of those future picks, holding on to Jeremy Sohan, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, because the Spurs are now set up to make the next move, right? Like if a Jaylen Brown gets disgruntled in Boston, San Antonio is set up perfectly to add a guy like that to their core. So I love the move to get Fox. I love the price that they paid to get him, and that's going to push them firmly into the play-in conversation this year, while also setting them up for what they're going to do for the next 10 years with Wemby on their team.
Definitely. And I'll round it out. I'll tell y'all mine is just the Luca AD trade just for the magnitude and what it did for the NBA. But I do think Cleveland getting DeAndre Hunter is very sneaky move. They're definitely all in the East right now. I don't know if that gets them over that Boston hump. I'm curious, Jeremy, kind of what your thoughts are on that. And I think we go back to KD after that, man. What is your thoughts on DeAndre Hunter to Cleveland?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that. The 2017 Warriors, right? Teams in the NBA did not want to make trades in the deadline or free agent signings because they were like, we know we're not going to beat the Warriors. So why are we going to go, you know, over our shoulders and do all this stuff to just lose in the second round to the Golden State Warriors in a hard-fought 5 games, right? That's not how people view the Boston Celtics right now. The Cavs are saying we have Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley has taken a leap this season. We have Jared Allen. We have some pieces. We have a core. We have continuity. Let's go for it. Why wait around? We were lucky enough for Donovan Mitchell to re-sign with us. We're going to show him, just like the Luca LA thing you touched on, Jerry, we're going to show him that we are willing to make these moves to go for it, right? So getting a guy like DeAndre Hunter, and I saw something that said Tatum, when matched up with DeAndre, is still putting up 26, 8, and 5. Like, I get it, right? But you need someone of that physique, that size, to at least match up with them. And I think the Cavs got that. Everyone's talking about the Western Conference arms race. There's some stuff happening in the East too. And I want to shout out the Cavs for actually taking the initiative to do that.
No doubt. It's definitely the best, maybe not the best time of the year in the NBA, but some of the most fun. And I just got to say this, the way that Woj went out with it was one of the like coolest retirement speeches or I guess monologues or whatever that he posted. But missing out on that rivalry today was a little sad. Not seeing them go back and forth, but I thought Shams did an amazing job. When I look at the NBA now, Jeremy, you mentioned the arms race in the West. I'm curious for Matt and Jerry, when you look at the East now, clearly Boston, Cleveland are the two favorites. What is kind of your thought, and even a little bit of Hornets perspective in for this upcoming year and kind of what you see moving forward in the East? Matt and then Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big proponent of the champ is the champ until they get beat. So, I mean, the East still runs through Boston, in my opinion. they are having the, championship hangover last couple of weeks where they're kind of struggling. But we saw on Sunday night turned it back up to 10, overcame a 26-point deficit against Philly, and ended up winning that game by close to double digits. So Boston's ceiling is still the highest in the East and probably the league, to be honest. That's why they're still the championship favorites. So the East runs through Boston. But Jeremy, I do like Cleveland really trying to go for it. I like Milwaukee adding Kyle Kuzma, a guy that, you can argue his talent level, you can argue his effort level, but he's been a top six player on a championship team before, so he knows what it takes, and he's going to be available, which you cannot say about Chris Middleton in 2025. So I like the move the Bucks made. I think but like I said, at the end of the day, Boston is still the favorite, and everything really runs through them, and that's why they are the betting favorite right now.
Very quickly, temperature on the Knicks, Jerry, and you touch on this because not many people have talked about what's going on in New York.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks have definitely kind of staying put. I kind of thought they would have made a move to kind of jump out of that 3 seed spot and maybe reach up for that second or 1 seed even. Because runs happen in an NBA in games, but I think they also happen throughout the weeks of the season. Just like Matt kind of touched on with the Celtics kind of struggling a little bit. I was hoping that they would have made uh, just a mini splash. And I think we could see teams like Boston, like New York, kind of do something in this buyout market with Marcus Smart going over to Washington. He's probably going to be bought out. Same thing with Chris Middleton. I'd assume that he'd be bought out. So maybe I was hoping personally that Cleveland was going to reach for Chris Middleton. But now that you have DeAndre Hunter, it's like, dude, you got the best possible upgrade. So I'm trying to see what happens to these other pieces that are going to get bought out to see what else shakes up just kind of the landscape of both conferences, honestly. So I think going forward, I want to shout out Cleveland as well. I didn't really see a DeAndre Hunter move coming, but it's definitely an upgrade from Isaac Okoro as well. So I love it. And I heard Bob Myers talk about it during the trade deadline special where we didn't want to make any moves at the top whenever we had Kevin Durant because there was no need to. They knew that they were the best team. And you touched on how everybody else knew it too. They're not going to touch them, but the Cavs know that they're within striking distance to get this thing done. And personally, I think this is still a wide open NBA title race. Even if everything does run through Boston, everybody's making the necessary moves right now to compete with Boston. And that's going to even intensify more after we see how this buyout market looks.
When you talk about the buyout market, I just saw something before we started recording that there are two players that should be bought out here in the next couple of days that are going to become available. And I just wonder, Jeremy, you can start. Your just overall thoughts on these guys. One of them we saw recently in Charlotte, Malcolm Brogdon, former rookie of the year, really solid backup point guard. And the other one that I saw, which this is a guy that I still, for some reason, irrationally believe in and believe that this guy can be an impactful NBA player. Ben Simmons. Saw that he might get bought out by the Brooklyn Nets and hit the open market. Do you believe that either of those guys or really anybody else that you can predict to get bought out will make an impact on the playoff race in the coming weeks?
Yeah, Brogdon, yes, Ben Simmons, no. I'm gonna keep this short, guys. It's I'm sold all my stock. I shorted Ben Simmons, but with the Knicks point too, right? Like M Mitchell Robinson is coming back. OG Anunoby just got injured. He'll be coming back. So it's not like they need to make trades. Their trades are the guys who are injured who will be coming back to their team. So I think they'll be okay. They don't need to go and acquire a center when you have one in the waiting. That's just my take. But Hunter, what about you?
I'm with you there, and I want to pose one other question to you guys: Is do you think Yusuf Nurkic will be a Charlotte Hornet for anything past this season, or even get into that level? Jerry, you're shaking your head no. Matt's saying yeah. What you think?
I personally, to go back when we gave out the Hornets grades for the trade deadline, I could really see a world where Yusuf Nurkic plays well enough to finish out this season for the next 30 odd games or so. To come summertime, somebody's going to need a body because Nurkic isn't a bad player.
No,
I just
no.
think that personally, with what was going on in Phoenix, the lack of culture that's over there, the lack of leadership, things didn't really mix too well. And players like that need a certain kind of star level player, like how Damian Lillard got the best out of Yusuf Nurkic in Portland. Kevin Durant and D Book and Beal were not that guy because of all the mess that's going on with them. So I could see somebody reaching for that in the summertime for sure. I can't see it for 2026.
Matt, you agree?
Yeah. No, I'll hop in. I think if people thought that about Nurkic, he would have been traded weeks ago from the Suns, and they just had to give Charlotte a first round pick to take his contract. So I don't think there is going to be that market for Nurkic that you do, Jerry. And I think it just makes more sense for Charlotte to keep him around next year because Charlotte is the team that needs the body at center. They don't have Mark Williams. They don't have Nick Richards. The only two players in their team taller than 6'8" right now are Taj Gibson and Musa Diabate. And Musa is not ready to carry that load. And Taj Gibson's knees are not built to carry that type of load anymore.
Shout out Taj, man. But I mean, you're absolutely right. And the thing that Jerry mentioned with the Blazers, right? Dame is calling for Nurkic high screens from 25, 30 feet out. And it's allowing Nurkic to have so much space as he's either rolling or popping to that perimeter spot. And with the Suns, D Book wasn't getting those. He's trying to get to the mid range. KD's trying to get to the mid range. Beal's trying to get to that elbow nail area, and that takes the space that Nurkic would usually have in Portland. That's why I'm kind of skeptical about this fit too, because with a guy like LaMelo, you can call that screen that high out, that far out. However, you know you need a guy with LaMelo that's a lob threat. We saw Luka tell the Lakers, hey, with my play style, I need a vertical threat. That's what I need. And Nurkic is not that in his career. Now, I will say, Charles, you can tell, would like a floor spacing five. I think Grant Williams, when he was healthy, did a lot of things as a pick and popper, as someone that could be a facilitator from that perimeter spot too. As we saw his off-ball screens when LaMelo would throw the ball over, get pinned on a Grant Williams screen, Brandon Miller would catch it on the wing and put it up. That was bread and butter, that two-man game that Grant was kind of facilitating, being the intermediary with. I don't see Nurkic fitting in those spots. However, like Matt said, you don't have any other options. And I would rather Nurkic minutes than Taj Gibson dwindling and seeing his knees turn to dust. And Taj, we love you, man, truly. But you can't play 20 minutes a game in today's NBA.
Yeah, he didn't sign up for that. And go ahead, Jerry.
Now, like just to kind of piggyback, I'm assuming that in the free agency saga of this thing, that Jeff is going to go make a move to get more bodies at the five. Like, yeah, for the present day right now, obviously there's not a whole lot going on, and we're pretty thin right there. I definitely know that. But this is predicated on me assuming that Jeff is going to go get more bodies, and me also assuming that Nurkic should play well enough to go move him. Like, he definitely wasn't playing well, yeah, but he wasn't playing at all because he got supplanted for moping because Mason Plumlee took his starting job, and then Nick Richards later on. So we'll see
Which
how
is
things shake out.
completely fair, by the way. If Plumlee was taking my job, I'd be moping like hell too. Let's be honest here.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no doubt. And that's one thing too, back to kind of Nurkic's fit. When I think of LaMelo, I think of him with a rim running big, right? Throwing those lobs. And we've talked about Mark Williams. His hands weren't where they needed them to be at times this year. And I think that's part of what went into that deal.
Jeff Peterson, Charles Lee, we talked about the identity that they're forming with this team. What are they telling Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball? Hey, look at what we're doing. We're making moves. The guys who aren't showing effort are gone. We're building around you guys. What's that overall message? And I gotta go to Matt real quick because at a certain point, right, Brandon and LaMelo are the guys, but you can't wait till they're 27 to say, hey, now it's time for us to win.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder what LaMelo, what Brandon are thinking about this move because there's all this talk in Charlotte the last month about this core four with LaMelo and Brandon and Miles and Mark. And in the middle of the night, after another loss, they shipped Mark off to LA. So, what did LaMelo know about this? What did Brandon know about this? What are the talks behind the scenes? What are they saying to those guys about how the roster is going to get improved around them? Because you're right, Jeremy. Like LaMelo is going to be in year five next year. Brandon is going to be starting year three, albeit year two is ruined with an injury. You see, Victor Wembanyama is in year two, and the Spurs made this giant move to get De'Aaron Fox to like pair with Wemby. So you're right. I mean, I'm so torn between Charlotte trying to like collect all these future assets, but they do have two star level players right now that they need to start building around right now. So when do they cash in on these picks? Do they tank again next year? Who do they draft? Is it Cooper Flag? Is he the home run swing that they hit this summer to bring in? There's just still so much that is in flux about their future, and it kind of I mean, this trade deadline just kind of made it even more murky.
Absolutely. And I think you kind of touched on the everything around the Hornets right now. And I really appreciate you guys jumping on the pod, Jerry and Matt. Jeremy, everyone knows, familiar face. And we'll see what happens with this Hornets. This front office continues to stack picks. They've got guys like Vasa Micic on the way out. We don't have to watch the ball stop there anymore. We got a lot of Nick Smith Jr. minutes, a lot of KJ Simpson minutes coming at the one, and we'll see what Charlotte does moving forward. But appreciate y'all tuning in to the Highway 49 podcast, talking NBA trade deadline, and we'll be back soon.